All right. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's Campfire session. Um, so this month's today's Campfire session is on timesheet and logging time. So let's get started. Well, just before we get into the agenda, an intro on me. So my name is Omar. I am part of the customer success team at Aprika. I'm involved with a lot of the customer support and the customer success activities. So anything from health checks, training videos, documentation, customer support. So, yep. All right. So moving on to the agenda. So mission control offers a lot of user-friendly ways for you to log time against projects. And in this session, we'll be looking at all of those options and doing a deep dive to better understand each one and possibly figure out what may be best for you. So we'll be covering the timesheet. A lot of you may be familiar with that, and if you aren't, you're in the right place. We'll be going over the calendar converter, the log time component. So that's where you usually log time outside of the timesheet. And then the other option is using the mobile app time logger. So the mobile app time logger is a new feature that we put out this year, and it's a lot more user friendly to use it on the mobile now. We'll also go over approvals and rejections briefly. We do have a separate Campfire session that goes over approvals and rejections that we did very recently. So I'd recommend checking that out if you'd like more details on that. But we will touch over that as well. All right. So just before we get into the demo, I'd like for this session to be interactive. So if you have any questions, try and put them through, and I'll be happy to answer them as I go along. If somebody could try and put a question, or just let me know that either the chat or Q&A is working, just so I know you are able to put the questions through. So there we go. Thank you for that. So I can see. So we'll be using the Q&A. So if you have any questions, just put your questions in there. Thank you for that. All right. So I'll just jump on over to the page here. Should be able to see my browser now. All right. Let's get started. So the timesheet. So the timesheet, you're able to access it in a few different ways. So I'm currently on I'm inside of the mission control default application that comes through with it. So I'm on the mission control console under the mission control tab. And if I were to go into the progress pad, I'm able to see the timesheet tile over here. So if I click into that timesheet tile, I'm able to go to the timesheet from there. So that's the first way you can access it. You can also access it from the navigation menu. So at the top here, I've got the timesheets tab here that I can use to access it. If you don't see it here, it might be under the More tab. And if you still don't see it, you may just need to add it to your navigation menu. So I'll just click the edit icon there, and then you can add more items from there. If you still don't see it there, then it most likely means either the application is not inside of, that the tab itself is not inside of the application you're in. So if you're using a custom application, it's possible that it might not have been added in there. Or you just don't have access to it. So just to confirm, if you have access to it, you can use the app launcher in the top left. So I'll just look up timesheet, and I can see that I've got two options here under items. So the first one is for the Lightning component. The second one is for the Classic component. So you can just click into the whichever one is preferable to you. You can access that from there. If you don't see it from the search here, you just need to speak to your admin about adding access to the timesheet tab on your profile or permission set, and then you should be able to see it. All right, so when I come onto the timesheet here, before I get into all the details here, just to clarify that what your timesheet view may look like is likely going to be different from what you're seeing today. And that's because I have certain settings enabled that slightly change up the view. And we'll go through all of these settings towards the end as well. So if you'd like to bring it closer to what you're seeing here today or change it up a bit, you can, those settings will help. All right, so within the timesheet, it will automatically load the timesheet and all of its data for the current user that is logged in that has a role record related to their user. So I'm logged in as my own user, Omar here, and I've got a role record, and it's automatically put that in there. So it's loading up all of the relevant data for me here. It will also load up the data for the current week or current month that you're in. So right now it's showing me for the current week, but there is a setting where you can switch it to show you data for the current month. So You can use the date picker to go into a specific week that you'd like to. So select the date that you want to go to and click go, or you can use these arrows to just go 1 week back or 1 week forward. So let's get back to current week. Yep, so those are the two options you have in terms of accessing the timesheet data. The timesheet itself, it will show you all of the actions that are assigned to you. So I've got a question here. Is there a setting or easy way to add the start and end date for each specific action? In my org, it only shows the project, milestone, and action name. Yeah, so you're referring to the data table over here. So I've got the project name here. I've got the milestone. I've got the action here, and there is one custom field that you can add in. So I have chosen to add in the end date for the action. What you can choose to do is create, so because the setting only allows one custom field at this point in time, you can create a formula field that puts together or concatenates the start and end date and put that in here. So I'll just quickly show that. We'll come back over this again. So this is under the timesheet settings. There's a setting called timesheet additional field settings, and then you can select whatever field you want to add from the action. So if you have a formula field that concatenates the start and end date, you can select that field from here. So for now, I've just got the end date. We have taken this into account before, where we can add multiple fields in there. So it is a feature request that we are looking at. So just stay tuned and just reach out to us if you'd like an update on that. So hopefully that answers your question there. All right, so back to it. So you're seeing your actions as individual rows inside of this table over here. So you're seeing the project name, the milestone name, the action ID, as well as any custom field that you've added in there. I'm able to see the chatter icon. So if I need to chatter someone on this action, I can use that chatter field from there. I can use the action checklist item to see if there's any checklist items within the action itself. So I can access that from there. I've got the issue manager, so if there's any issues that I'm working with as I'm logging time, so maybe I need to check off some issues that are now resolved, I can check those off directly from here within the timesheet itself. And then lastly, I've got a checkbox here which allows me to set the action to complete. So for example, I've got this action here where it says 1 hour. I can set that to 1 hour there, and if I feel like I've done enough work in it, I can set that to complete directly and save it. So this will go ahead and update the action status to complete. So I'll just undo that change, just refresh my page. Okay, so this data table here, it will show you actions that either you're assigned to as the action owner or a contributor for the current time frame that you're viewing. What it will also show you is if you weren't assigned to any action but you did log time to it in that time frame, you will see that action appear inside of this page. So for example, you might have logged time to an action that you were not assigned to outside of the timesheet, or you might have used some of the action lookup feature. You might have used the action lookup feature here to add that action to your timesheet and then log time to it. So those are the type of actions that will appear in your timesheet. So if you move on to, so I've got a new action here, a new question here. If you mark action complete, will it show up again in the next week? So if I mark an action as complete, it will only show up until the point that I have the action in my view. So if I've got a example, if I were to go back to last week here, do I have this action? So this is capturing requirements. Let's see if it's in my previous week. No. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll update the action date here. So as long as the action is within the week and it's not complete, you will be able to see it in your view. So if, let's say it ends next week, I think I might have some holidays in there. So maybe let's say it ends in somewhere in Jan. Okay, so we'll refresh our view here. And in the current week, I will log time to it. I will set it to complete. I will save the timesheet. Now, if I were to go, so the action actually ends in Jan on the 15th. So if I were to go to Jan 13th, so I'm not expecting to see the action because it has been set to complete. So hopefully that answers your question. So we'll go back, undo that, just delete the time log real quick. And we'll just make sure to uncheck the action. So we'll set it back to planned. Like that. Okay, so refresh. All right, so we've discussed what actions you'll see in here, which is actions that you're assigned to, or actions that you've added in manually, or actions that you've logged time to that you weren't assigned to. Yeah. So we'll go to discuss some of the other columns here. So you've got the hours column here, which shows you hours scheduled, hours completed, and hours remaining. So for this action here, I've got three numbers here. So the first one indicates the hours scheduled, the second one is the hours completed, and the third one is the hours remaining. And these numbers, if you hover over them, you'll see which one it represents. And so the first row indicates the billable hours, and the second row indicates the non-billable hours. So you are able to hide a lot of the columns in here if you don't use them. So there's a setting that we'll go over soon. So this is the action completion percentage column. So if you'd like to specify a certain percentage for this action, so maybe I've done 1 hour, but I still consider it to be, let's say, 50% complete. There's still more work that needs to be done on it. So that's how I can update the action completion percentage directly. And then I've got a track timer icon. So I can use this track timer to just start a timer. And when I'm done working on this action, I can stop it. So when I do start a timer, let's try this action here. You'll see that it has a red icon in there. So this indicates that the timer has started. And wherever you go outside of mission control, outside of the timesheet itself, whether you're on the project overview page, the Gantt chart, or the whiteboard, whatever you see this icon, the log time icon next to an action, this will indicate that the timer is, you have an active timer that's running. And if you want to stop it, you can just click into that and it will give you some details on what's been created. So save that. I'll remove that for now. What I will do is I'll start a timer on a different action. So we'll start it on this one. And we'll leave this running. We'll come back to it. We'll see how those numbers are being calculated over there and how you can start and stop the timer from the different modal as well. All right, so we have that there. So if you'd like to log, if you know how many hours you've done already, you can just look into the cell for it. So you'll see that I've got I've got 2 cells for each action row. So one is for the billable row and one is for the non-billable row. So if I were to put hours in the cell above it, so I'll be able to get billable hours there. And if I want to put non-billable hours, I can just put the hours directly into that cell. Now for each cell, if you'd like to add more detail onto the time log, like you'd like to add what time log type it is, if you'd like to maybe update what case it relates to, or if you'd like to add notes, you can double click into the cell and it will bring up this modal here. So this modal, similar to the table itself, this can be customized as well. You are able to adjust what fields you see here. If you can also add up to 5 custom fields in here. So I've chosen to add the case, I've chosen to add the project owner approval status and the role manager approval status. So I can see those details here. I can update, so for example, the time log type. I can add some notes, and then I can click save. So once I save that, I will be able to see those time logs have been saved. And if I were to double click into a cell, so I did save it in the other one, yeah. So I'm able to see the notes. I'm able to see the time log type and any additional information that I might have added in. Let's go ahead and delete that. We'll delete this as well. Save. All right. So when you are logging time, so if we have a look at one of these time logs here, so you'll see that I have one time log added to this day for that action. I can choose to update it directly. So if I want to increase that to 2 hours, I can just update that there. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a new time log that totals that amount. So you'll just see the sum of it in that cell, but if you click into it, you'll see more detail. So this is that initial time log that I had, and this is the difference for the total amount that I added in. So this is how I can edit it from here. So I can save that. And now this has gone ahead and created the time log for me. If I'd like to add more detail, if I'd like to review anything, I can click into the relevant time log. and that's how I can use that. So if I go back in here, I can select which one. So maybe maybe I don't want to have this time log in my view anymore. Maybe it was by error, so I can delete it from here. I can cancel out of here to undo any changes. I can use the save a new button to save any changes on this one and create a new one, or just use a save to just save the changes here. So I'll go ahead and delete that, save timesheet. Okay, so that's how you can add your time logs from within the timesheet itself using the cells here. What you'll also notice is, so we've discussed how you can edit the existing time logs by double clicking into a cell, but you can also see time logs using this more details icon. So I'm seeing all of the time logs for that specific action for the current week. So I'm seeing that the time logs were for the different dates, the hours that were complete, non-billable, and so on. Again, this is also there's a setting that allows you to adjust what fields you see here. So I've chosen to add the case field here. So that's an additional field I've added in, but you can add other fields. You can remove some other fields from here as well. If you'd like to make any updates directly, you can just click on the edit icon there, or you can use the delete icon. So now these two are in the edit mode. I can update whatever I'd like. So maybe I'd like to put this to 1 hour there. I'll add some notes there. Updated hours. And then I can click save using that icon. And then once I close out of here, it will update to reflect the new changes. So it was this one here. Yep, so it's this one that has updated. So if I double click into that, that's the updated hours notes that I put in there. And the hours completed has been updated as well. Another thing to note here is that if I were to, you'll see that I've got different days in here, so Monday through to Sunday. I've got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday grayed out. And that's because I have business hours set up as well as holidays. So I have business hours set up where Saturday and Sunday are non-working days. And on my role record itself, I have Saturday and Sunday set up as non-working day for my role. So that's why it's graying out. But there is a setting that you can enable to show that. I'll go through the settings towards the end. Friday is grayed out because it is the start of a holiday that I've put in. So you'll see that this is reflected in the holiday over here. So if I click into that, I'm able to see the finer details on the holiday. So it starts on the 20th, ends on the 3rd of Jan, and goes on for 11 days. So I'll see that Friday has been grayed out. So those are your different columns there. We'll move to the last few columns here. So you've got your total. So the total indicates how many hours you've completed for that specific action in the current time frame. And then you have approval. So this is your approval summary. So your approval summary will show you what status your time logs are in. So if it's still in the pending stage, if your projects require approval, then your time logs will usually go to pending if you've used the save button. If you use the save and submit button, or if you've updated the approval status to be submitted, then time logs will go into the submitted status, and over here it'll indicate how many of those time logs have been submitted for approval. Then you've got your approved status, where if time log has been approved by the approver or approvals weren't required, then it will automatically go into approved. And then lastly, which is rejected. So if a time log has been rejected by the approver, you will see that sum up over here. And this summary at the top here is an overall summary of all of your time logs. So this was an individual action level. This is the overall actions for the current time frame. So I'm seeing I've got 14 time logs that are pending. I've got 1 approved, and then none in submitted and none in rejected either. So if I were to click save and submit, you'll see that the 14 time logs that I had, they will move from submitted into pending because they require approvals. And now the approver, whoever that is, they will see an approvals tab that appears at the top here, and they can start approving time logs. So we'll get to that in a second. And if a time log has been rejected, so I've got a few time logs that have been rejected, but I'm still seeing 0, and that's because these time logs that were rejected were for last week. So if I were to go to last week, I should see some of them in the rejected column. So all 3 are in the rejected column. So that's how those numbers are pulled in. Yeah, so, and one more thing before we go to the next section here, if you have made any changes, so if you, right now I'm currently in the draft stage, so I've put in an R in there. I can see that this is indicating some unsaved changes. and maybe I want to undo that. I can use this undo icon towards the end of the row. So any changes that I've made inside of the rows over here, for example, those will be undone because those are unsaved changes. So that's how I can undo changes directly. So maybe I don't want to double click into it, delete it. So I can just undo changes for the entire action row. So for example, if I were to go in here, if I were to add notes to this action, so updated notes and then save that, I can use the undo button to undo that change. And if I were to just save that, it wouldn't save that because I undid that change. So yeah. So we've covered the approvals, we've covered the summary for that, we've covered the totals there. So now, as I mentioned earlier, that you'll see actions in here that are assigned to you or in the time frame as either as the action owner or contributor, or you might also see actions that you've logged time to. So for example, I see I've got projects from the internal project as well as forefront. So let's pick one project and log time to it, and we'll see that pull through. So if you were to log time to it outside of the timesheet, that's where it will come from. So let's take this project here, and I will go ahead and log time. So we'll cover the log time component in more detail, but I'll just quickly run through this example here. So this is for the current week. And if I go back here to my timesheet, refresh that, I have the forefront project, I have the internal project, and I have the SF Solutions project as well. So that's how the actions can get pulled into the timesheet. And if I wanted to look up a specific action to add to my timesheet without needing to go outside of the timesheet itself, I can use the filters over here. So I can optionally choose to add an account. So maybe I'm only looking for projects that relate to a specific account. So now it's going to show me, filter that list down to a specific project that relate to that account. So maybe I'm looking for this one here, and now it's going to filter that down to only the actions within this project that I've selected. So if I were to remove the filter from there, remove this filter from there, if I just look at projects, I'm seeing all of my projects in here. If I just look for actions, I'll just need to put in a name. So maybe documentation. Now it will just filter down the list of all of the projects that are actions that I have on documentation. So let me try that again. I think I might just need to undo that. Let me refresh my page here. Let's try that again, documentation. Yeah, there we go. So I can see there's an action on documentation on this project, another on this project. So I can, if I know what the action name is, I can quickly find that directly. And yes, if I were to select it, it will just show up as another row. So documentation, select that. I can click on the confirm icon there. And now that action has been added as a new row. Until unless I log time to it, it won't, it will stay there. So for example, right now I see the action. If I were to exit out of here, if I go back to the timesheet, now that action won't be there anymore because I didn't log time to it, obviously because I'm not assigned to it. So if you do need it to stay around within your timesheet, you want to make sure that you're either assigned to it or that you've logged time to it for the time frame. Yep, so that's the action lookup. We've covered the holiday. We'll just quickly go over the totals here. So this is your grand totals. So you'll see the total billable hours you've completed for this day. You'll see the total non-billable you've done for this day, the holiday hours, if any, and then the total hours across the whole day. And then similarly, you'll see the if you look at the totals row-wise, so you'll see the total billable hours completed in this current week or this current period that you're looking at. So I've just done one billable hour in this week. I've done 23.25 non-billable hours, 8-hour holidays, and the total across the whole week, across all of those different categories, is 32.25 out of 40. So 40 is basically my capacity that's set up on my role record, and I've only done 32.25. So there's still about 8 hours that I can log time to, that I should be logging time to, or as is expected of me to log time to. So that is one way for you to check how many hours you've done and how much you still need to do. Yep, so there's the different options there. We'll go over the buttons and then we'll go through the settings. So the save time sheet it just does as it says. It saves any time logs you've created, and then you can those will be, if approval is required, it will stay in the pending stage. If approval is not required, it will just go directly to the approved status. You have save and submit. So any time log that you have that is in the pending status, so I've got one time log there that's in the pending status. So if I click save and submit, that will now move to submitted, and this will now appear in the approver's timesheet as under the approvals tab. And then you have save suggested hours. So you'll notice that I've got a few actions where the hours are grayed out, and this is basically suggested hours. And the suggested hours are based on the role allocation data. So for example, I have this action set up. I've got 6 hours on it. And what I've done is whether you've done the even distribution by default or you've manually distributed the hours. So I've actually manually distributed the hours so that I spent 3 hours on Wednesday. I'm scheduled to spend 3 hours on this action on Wednesday and 3 hours on Thursday. So if that's in line with what I actually did so far, I can use the Save Suggested Hours button, and this will go ahead and update that for me. So now if I need to add more details, I can double click into it. I can add notes, save that, and confirm my changes. So that's gone ahead and saved that for me. So that's how you can use the Save Suggested Hours feature. Then you have the clone last week's hours. So if I were to clone last week's hours, what this does is it basically brings up a draft of all of the time logs that are submitted in the last week or last period. And I can choose to update them. So it'll just move the dates ahead by 1 week for all of those time logs. Everything else will remain the same, and then I can update that accordingly. So maybe I don't want to include anything on the internal project, so I'll just delete those. And we'll just leave the forefront one and delete the rest here. So maybe I worked on the same project or same action, and I did similar hours, or maybe I did a few more. I can update that from here directly. Save that. I can choose to save and submit, or save, or just save and submit, or just exit out of here entirely. And that's just going to create a new time log for me here. So that's the clone last week's hours button. Yep. So if I were to now just refresh my page here. Yeah, so I should have my timer running. So now if I click into that, so I'm able to see the time log information modal. I can add more details as in terms of the our notes, if it relates to a checklist item, what completion percentage it has on the action, what time log type it relates to, and any other custom field that I have, I can add that in here. I can update that. So I've got a case there. If I can select what case it relates to and then save that. So if I were to save that, and now the timer has stopped. It has added 0.25, and if I were to double click into that, I see that I've updated the case on it. So that's been added there. So that's how you can update. So you can set timers from within the timesheet. The steps are pretty much the same as long as you see the log time icon outside of the system. You can start a timer from there as well. We'll cover how you can do that outside of the timesheet as well. So we've gone through a lot of these options here. Just a few more before we get to the calendar converter. So you have a keyword search here that you can use to narrow down your search results. So right now I don't have a very large list, but what I can do is I can use a keyword search to narrow down my search results. So what I'll do is actually I will bring in more actions. So right now I have a setting called Show Overdue Actions that is disabled. So if I were to click that, so any action that is not yet complete, but the end date is in the past, will now start coming up in my timesheet. So if this is something that you need to show your actions inside of review, that's how you can enable that. Again, I'll go through all the other settings, but for demonstration purposes, this is what the keyword search would be helpful for. So you have a long list of actions, and you may be looking for something specific. So maybe I'm working on a request for a proposal, so I know what action, what the name is, so I can just look that up. So this search function here, it will allow you to search on the milestone, the project, the milestone, as well as the action. So if you remember the project name, the milestone name, the action name, you can use that search function to find your action. And then lastly, you've got the filter icon as well. So with the filters, if there's anything else that you'd like to filter on, you have the option there. You can even choose to save filters. So you can create a filter there. You can apply your changes. So maybe forefront actions. So I'll create that. I will filter it. And we'll go out of here. We'll just refresh our view. So now my project, my timesheet is now filtered to the actions that are assigned to me for the filter that I selected, which is the forefront project. So And this filter is persistently remembered. So whatever filter that you've lost use will be displayed over here. So maybe I'll actually remove that. And I've got the option to filter on a specific project, the milestone, the category, the type for the milestone and the action. And then I can choose to filter on custom fields from the project milestone action for 2 fields. So we'll just undo our filter change there. All right, so if I go into the settings, we'll go through some of the settings here now. Okay, so for the timesheet settings, there's quite a few settings to go through, and I'll try and go, most of them are fairly easy, and as the setting itself suggests, it's fairly straightforward. So these settings, if you see a settings icon here, this means your settings are being controlled on an individual user basis, but you can choose to control this on an org-wide basis. So if I were to go into setup, sorry, the control panel. So from here, I can go into the control pad, and this is likely something your admin will need to set up for you. So if I go into the control pad, I can look for the timesheet settings tile, which should be here. Yeah. So if I'd like to control the settings org-wide, make sure the settings that are applied to everyone, I can make sure the timesheet settings override is true. And then whatever settings I apply over here will be applied to every user. So just something to keep in mind. If you'd like to stay consistent for every user, make sure they're following the same settings, you can enable that from there. And when you do enable that override, this settings icon will disappear, and those settings will need to be managed centrally from the control pad. Okay, so back to it. So show overdue actions, as we saw, it will show you all the actions that are assigned to you, but the status is not complete, and the end date is in the past. So you have a few on hiding the billable or non-billable row. So the hide billable row for non-billable actions, obviously, if it's a non-billable action, you don't want to see the billable row. So if you were, that will just save up some space for you on your timesheet. We'll see what that looks like once we save that. You can choose to hide the billable row directly. So maybe your users aren't supposed to be logging billable time, but the action itself is not considered to be non-billable. So in that case, you can hide that from there. There is non-billable row, so maybe your users don't log non-billable time. You can check that box there. Then you have hide non-billable row if the hours scheduled non-billable is 0. So if there aren't any hours scheduled on the non-billable field on the action, then you can choose to hide that row because you're probably not going to be using it if that's your process. So let's see what this looks like where hide billable row for non-billable actions. So my internal project actions, those are, so if I just remove that filter there. So my internal project, those are all non-billable actions, whereas the forefront project that I have, that is a billable project. So that's why I'm seeing the billable rows for them. And for the non-billable internal projects, I'm only seeing the non-billable rows there. You'll also see the hours have also been, the hours section only shows non-billable hours because that's what's relevant over there. So there's that setting. So I can choose to hide holidays. So the holiday over here, that can be hidden. I can choose to hide the new action section. So there's 2 options here. So I can choose to hide just the account filter lookup, or I can choose to hide this full section here. So if I were to check that box, I'm not going to be able to look up any actions from within the timesheet. If I were to just hide this one, enable this setting, it will only hide this one, this account filter lookup, but it won't hide the project filter and add action filter. And then you have a few options to hide these individual buttons. So hide save button, hide save and submit, hide suggested hours. So the suggested hours we saw earlier was based on the hours allocation from the action. So if you have those, if you don't like to see those numbers in there, you can hide that from there. You have hide approval status information. So this is referencing the approval status at the top as well as the approval summary on the individual action rows. So you can choose to hide that if you want to. You can hide clone last week hours, that button there. Shade non-working days, column gray. So this is that setting that allows you to shade the non-working days. Just makes it easier so users don't log time on the wrong days. You can still log time to it if you want to. It doesn't prevent you, but it's just more of a visual indicator if you want to prevent users from logging time on the wrong day. If you'd like to prevent them, like from saving a time log on that day, then you need to have some custom configuration to enable that. Then you have disable save and submit timesheet notification. So if I were to go here, if I were to, so right now you'll see that I've got 39.5 hours out of 40. So if I were to save, let's say 0.25 more hours, it's still not enough to meet the full capacity for my current week. So if I were to click save and submit, I get this notification here letting me know that the total hours I have that I've submitted is less than what is suggested for me, which is 40 hours. Do you still wish to submit? So if you don't want to see this notification because it appears every time, you can disable that using this disable save and submit timesheet notification. You have group time logs by time log type for each action. So that is a setting that you can use to group your time logs by type, basically, under each action. So let me just make sure I undo that save, yeah, because it's persistently remembers, that's why it's coming up. But now I've removed that, so I shouldn't anymore. So I've got the time log type setting enabled. I don't have any type selected. Let me just make sure. Yeah, that's enabled. So if I were to go ahead and select a type for any one of these time logs, so maybe this type, it will basically categorize each time log and group them by the category, the time log type itself. So if I were to put in 1 hour there, so right now it doesn't have a type, but if I were to select like customer success over there, it will create a new row for it. So it's another way for you to group your time logs. Just see the grouping of time logs. So I can choose to use these drop downs there to, if it's taking up too much space on my timesheet. And I have individual ones as well, so I can. So those are the individual collapse expand, and this is the collapse all expand all, and then this is the grouping of the time logs. And if I were to log time to one of these over here, it will automatically set the time log type as well, just because it's in that relevant row. So let's undo those changes, go back into the settings. So if I were to just delete this and save that. Okay, so now it should not, yep, okay. So if I go to the settings there, I've got disable hyperlink. So maybe if you, this is more a global setting that you can control. So maybe you don't want users to click into the URLs, or maybe you want to prevent users from clicking into the links with the actions that you have here. You can disable those hyperlinks for internal users as well as community users. This more applies on the control pad override setting that you have, but you can choose to disable it individually. So what I'll show you a use case that might come up. What I like to do is when I'm copying text is I double click into the cell, but if I had a URL for it, it would open it up in a new tab. So if you're used to copying text that way, which I am, so I find that helpful. So maybe you want to find the name of the action or whatever, you just want to copy that name, put it somewhere else, or anything else you want to copy, that's helpful. If I had that disabled or enabled, I wouldn't be able to, I'd have to drag and select it all. Otherwise, if I were to click into it, that's where it'd take me. So really up to you how you use it. You can choose to disable, enable it. So we discussed the timesheet, looking at it from the perspective of a week. So you can choose to change that to a month as well. So we'll show you all of the actions for the month. And when you change the month from here at the top, it will take you. It will only show you the time logs for the month that you've selected over there. So it'll show me all the time logs and actions that I've submitted in the month of November. So that's how I can switch between the two views. Let's go back to weeks view and go to the rest of the settings. So I have the option to see the, so I talked earlier about having the hours column here, so this one here. So this shows you the hours scheduled on the action, hours completed on the action, hours remaining. Well, you can change that to my hours, so like how I have set it up here. So it will only show me the hours that are assigned to me, and that takes into account the contributor's hours. So if I'm added as a contributor, I'm only supposed to do X amount of hours, it will only show that. So it only shows me data that's relevant to me. So I can change that. So if I want to see the total hours, I can see that as well. I can switch that around. So we'll stick with my hours there. You have the option to adjust the day your timesheet starts, and that's done through the offset. So right now my timesheet starts on Monday. So maybe your timesheet has been starting on Sunday, but you'd like for it to start on Monday. You can choose to update the user locale to one that starts on Monday, or you can choose to update the timesheet offset. So maybe you can say +1. So obviously it's starting on Monday for me, but now it's going to start on Tuesday. But if it was starting on Sunday for you, if you set that to 1 day, it would start on Monday. We'll switch back to none and save that. Okay, so we've got quite a few columns in here, so I can uncheck these if I don't want to see any of them. I can remove them from my view using those checkboxes. I've got the timesheet additional field setting, which we've covered, so you can add an additional field in there from the action. Column width settings, you can adjust what the columns width for the first 3 columns, so for the project milestone, the pan ID, and the action, so you can adjust the numbers there. Usually, I think by default, sometimes, like for example, this project here, the project name is quite long, so I can choose to increase the width for that column, and then that should display the full name for me. Next section here is on the timesheet sort order. So I've set it to sort by the project name first, the milestone name, and then the action name. But I can adjust that accordingly to quite a few lookups that I have here. So I've got the action, milestone, project, requirement, skill, user story. So I've got a few different options there that I can use, and then I can select whatever field I'd like to sort it by, whether that's ascending or descending. Yeah. Time log information modal custom fields. So this is the modal when you double click into a cell to edit the time log. So when you click into that cell, you can adjust what fields you like to see. You can hide some of the stuff here. And if you want to add custom fields in there, there's a separate field set I'll cover off in a second. So if there's some stuff that you don't want to use, you can hide it from here. And then you can add additional fields using the drop downs over here. So it's actually not done through a field set, but it's done through these options here. So you can add up to 5 of them. Lastly, I've got the approvals tab. So within the approvals tab, if there's any tabs that you don't want to see, you can hide them from here, and that will be applied in your approvals tab. So those are your timesheet settings. And as I mentioned, it's settings you can control on an individual user basis, like how I've done here, or you can control it centrally from the control pad. Just one more thing before we move to the next topic, which is the calendar converter. You'll notice that I don't have any scroll bars on my timesheet here because I've zoomed it out to the extent where I don't need to scroll left and right. But if I were to go ahead and add overdue actions, I should see a scroll bar on the right-hand side because there's a huge list of actions there. Yeah, so if I scroll down, I can see the scroll bar there on the right-hand side. If I scroll left and right, there's just nothing for me to scroll left and right to. But let's say if I was working on a smaller screen where I did have to scroll left and right, I can see the scroll bar at the bottom that I can use. I can use the gestures on the touchpad. If I'm using a touchpad, I can use the gestures to scroll left and right, scroll up and down. Obviously, I can use the relevant scroll bar as well. What I can also do is if I'm using a mouse with a scroll wheel, I can hold the shift button and I can use the scroll up or scroll down to scroll left and right. So that's another way for you to move around within the timesheet as well. So we'll zoom out of here and we will remove the audio actions from our view. All right, so we can now go on to the next topic, which is the calendar converter. So the calendar converter it provides you with an alternative way of logging time. So I'll just bring that up here. So it provides you with an alternative way of logging time based on the Salesforce events you may have in your Salesforce calendar. So for example, if you're entering events in your Google or Outlook calendar to capture any work that you've done, any meetings you've had, and if you have the integration for it set up where events from your calendar get pulled into Salesforce calendar as event records, those will appear inside of your calendar converter. So right now I've got a few events coming up in here. So I've got a sales call, catch-up call. This is what's added to my calendar. I don't have the integration set up, but I'll show you what that looks like from the Salesforce calendar side. So if I open up calendar, So I've got these events that I've created. So we'll just assume that these were pulled in through the integration that we have from my calendar itself, and these are now appearing as event records. If I open that up, I'll see that it's assigned to me. It's got a start and end date. It's got the start and end time, and that's why it's pulling through on my calendar converter. So this basically allows me to quickly log time to events that I have within my calendar. So I can log time using that icon there. This will open up the log time modal. So I can select what project it relates to, what milestone, what action, and optionally a checklist item or issue. I can select, so I don't need to update the hours completed if I don't want to, because it's already picked that up based on the start time, end time that I had. I can add more details. Yeah, and this is the log time component itself. So this is where you can control fields. You can control fields over here as well through a field set. I'll cover that off in a second. But yeah, so I can log time there. I haven't selected an action, so maybe let's select a project here. Actually, let's do the internal project. We'll just do general there. So we'll log time there. And now this will appear as a time log inside of my timesheet as well. So once you've logged time, the color of the event itself will change. You'll see a red icon there to indicate that time has been logged, and the color of the event itself will change to the project's color. So on the project, I might have blue in there, so that's why it's showing up as blue. Whereas this time log that I submitted here, that's the project itself has a color of yellow, so that's why it's showing up as yellow. So if I go here, if I refresh my view, I should see an action come up in here. Internal BAU 2023, general, I've got 1 hour there on Monday. So that's how you can log time from there as well. Even if you don't have events, you can drag and drop here. So you can select however long you want to set the time for. So maybe I did 1 hour there. I can select the time and it's got the hours there. I just need to select what action it relates to. I can update the date as well as the project number. So these are your events pulling through. What you can also do is have actions pull through inside of your event. So if I were to go back here, I think if I delete some of these time logs here, that should pull through. So if I go back to the calendar converter, refresh my view. So if you have set the start hour, start minute, end hour, end minute on the action itself, that should also appear on your timesheet. So let me just double check here. Projects. We'll open up the forefront PSA. And we'll look for the capturing requirements. So we'll edit this action here. Make sure the start time, end time, all of that is filled in. Start hour. Yeah, so I've got start hour as 12, 13. Yep, that's good. If I were to set this to plan, just make sure that pulls through. I'm assigned as the action owner. We'll make sure the dates are correct. So the dates are for today. Oh yeah, that's why it's not appearing. It's gone all the way in Jan. So you'll want to make sure your events are 1 day event. So go ahead and set that to 19th and save that. If I go back to my timesheet view, go into the calendar converter, I will now see the action pulling through as well. So I can see that it's an action that I haven't logged time to because of that green log time icon. So if I click on that, it will automatically fill in the relevant details, including the action as well. And I've got the hours there. I can add a note, so I can log time to it. So that's how I can log time on the action. So at the top, you'll just see a week's view. You've got your Monday through to Sunday over here. You can switch between week's view using the icons there. And you can, if you want to go back, if you've gone back a few weeks, you'd like to go back to you don't have to click through multiple times. You can just click on today. And that's how you can get back here. So that's the calendar converter. We'll go over approvals and rejections, and then we'll go to the log time component. So approvals, as we saw earlier, where you have clicked on save and submit, time log goes into the submitted status. This is where the approver, whether you're the project owner approver or you're the role manager approver or / the timesheet approver. Once the time log has gone into submitted status, you will see an approvals tab appear if you are the approver. So if I go into the approvers tab, I see all the people that I'm supposed to be approving time for that have submitted time for me to approve. So I'll see how many time logs I've submitted. So Arthur here submitted 3 time logs. and the sum of that is 4.5 hours. So if I click into that, yep, there we go. So now I'll see all of the time logs that Arthur submitted that I need to approve. So I'll see the project name there. I'll see what milestone it belongs to. I'll see the action PAN ID as well as the name, the date for the time log ID, and I'll see details from the time log itself. So I'm seeing the hours completed, whether that's non-billable, if it was overtime, what notes Arthur added. If I need to chatter Arthur over here, I can use the chatter feed over there. I'm not seeing anything on the project manager because I don't have project manager approval for this project, but I do have role manager. So I'm the role manager. I can set that to either be approved for individually, and I can choose to reject individual time logs. I can also choose to use this approve all icon to approve them. So I've got this option there as well. So if there's multiple time logs, you don't have to check individual ones. You can just select whichever one you want. So I've got reject icon there. So maybe we'll reject one time log, we'll approve the rest. So maybe this person hasn't added the notes in, so I'll put some comments around rejection, why it's being rejected. Please add the notes to this time log. And then we can click save. So now what this will do is approve the 2 time logs that Arthur has. So if I go back to the timesheet, those will now appear, and 2 will appear in the approved, and 1 will appear in the rejected, and Arthur himself will have a rejected tab over there. So he'll see time logs that have been rejected for him. Just before we get to that, I'll just cover off so as I mentioned earlier, you can adjust the columns you see here. So that can be done on the timesheet settings page where you can hide the different columns. If you'd like to add custom fields in here, that can be done through a field set. So that's something your admin will need to do for you. So you go into setup, you go into the object manager. In this case, we're updating fields on the time log. So I'll look up the time log object. I can go into the field set. So from here, I will look for the one which says approvals. So it's this one. I go in there, and then I can add whatever field I like. So I've added time log type as a custom field, and that's why I see it on my approvals tab as a field or a column that I can update. So that's how you can update it. So whatever field you want to add in or remove existing one, so you can remove that from here and then save it. Moving on to the so you've actually also got a weeks view, so you can jump between weeks. So maybe I only want to see time logs for a specific week. So this is back in July. It's showing me all the time logs. But if I were to go to a specific week, it will only show me time logs that have been submitted for approval to me for that current period. Yep, so that's how you can do that. And if you just want to see all of the time logs you need to approve for this person, you can just use that. Lastly, we have rejections. So rejections will show you again all of your time logs that you have. You can click into it if you want to see more details, or you can add custom fields here as well. So if I go back to the time log field sets, I have one called rejection tab fields. So there's going to be quite a few that I can remove, I can add from here. So I come in here, I can see the role manager has rejected it, and they've added in comment. So can you please relate this to a relevant case? So because I've added it to I've added case as a custom field here, I can update it directly. So I don't need to go back to the timesheet or somewhere else to update it. And I can save that. Right now, it's not calling for approval, but I can click on the submit icon there. So let me just zoom in a bit. So this is the submit icon, so I can click that. Now it's going to go out for approval. So now if I zoom back out of here, I'll see more details here. So I can choose to do a mass edit and then submit all. So if I click mass edit, it will open all of these time logs in the edit status for me. So it says here, can you please relate it to the relevant case? So that's been done. So I can click that. And then for the second one, it says, this does not look right. Can you please make sure you've added the correct hours? So I've got 64 hours there, which obviously doesn't look right. So I know what it should have been 6. So I go ahead and update that. I save that. Now that everything's done, I can choose to individually submit them, or I can choose to submit them from here. So I can click that mass submit icon, and all of those time logs will be submitted for approval. So that's how you can use the different tabs within the approvals tab, the rejection, the calendar converter, and the timesheet. So we've now just got the log time component and the Salesforce mobile app to go through. I know we're coming up on our 1 hour mark. So if you need to leave, that's okay. We'll have this recording uploaded to the website. So we'll see from. So if you have anything you'd like to review, you can see that recording. I'll just take a quick 1 minute more break and be right back. All right, so let's look at the log time component. So let's say you're not using the timesheet, or maybe you don't want to go to the timesheet, you're working on the project itself, and you'd like to log time to it. There's a few different options for you. So let's go to a project here. We'll open up this one. So I'm on the overview page, and this is one of those pages where I can see the log time icon. So I'm on the overview page at the very end. I've got a few icons that I can use. So looking at the action row, I've got this log time icon, so I can click into that. Now, because I clicked it in the context of the action, it will automatically populate the project, the milestone, the action on the time log itself, and so I won't need to look it up. There are other contexts as well, so maybe you log time in the context of the milestone or the project, the relevant field will be populated. So the date, the project member, those will be pre-populated to today's date as well as the current user's role record. So it's got my role record selected, and then I can update whatever I want to. So you'll need to make sure your date, project member, action, and either hours completed or material cost billable is populated. So maybe you don't want to track any of those. Maybe you just want to start a timer. So if you've selected the action, the date, and the project member, you should have this button here, Start Tracking Time, that you can use. So if I click on that, now it has started a timer similar to how we had done that on the timesheet. It's got the timer glowing as red, indicating that I have an active timer. This will also show up in my timesheet as well. So if I were to log time to an individual checklist item, so I've also got the icon on the individual checklist item. It will fill in the relevant fields, so the project, the milestone, the action, as well as the checklist item. So that's how I can log time from for those actions as well. So right now I'm in the context of the project. There are other ways you can access the log time component, which is through the utility bar here at the bottom. So you'll see that it's only filling in the project context because we're on the project record. It's not filling the milestone, the action, or the checklist item. So just something to keep in mind. So if I were to go to the milestone page, it will now fill it up to the milestone, but I still need to select an action. And this will filter down your search results. So right now there's only one action in that milestone. So I see that action there and I can select it. So if I were to go back to the project here, if I were to do it from here and select a milestone, it will only show me milestones relating to the project that is pre-selected for me. So that's your log time component. And if you'd like to adjust what fields are here, you can do that from the, again, from the time log field sets. So there's one called log time component fields. And within this one, if you add fields over here, it's going to make sure to include the date, the project member, the action, the status, as well as the completion. So those fields are going to be there by default all the time. So let's go ahead and add something. So maybe we'll add in the case. We'll add in the hours completed, obviously. That's what we use very frequently. And we'll put in the time log type. So maybe I just want these three fields as well as whatever is there by default. So I save that. I refresh my view here. And if I access the log time component, I see the default fields up until the completion, and then the three additional fields I added, which is the time log type, hours completed, and case. So if I want a less decluttered view, I can remove some of those fields that way. So we'll undo those changes. And just keep in mind, this is an org-wide setting, so everybody will see this change reflected in their view. So we'll just refresh that there. Yeah, so that's the time log component there. One thing on the time log component itself, so we have an active timer running on there, and it's been running for about 2 minutes. It's letting me know how much time has been completed when it started. If you have left your timer on this window, you will see right now when you click on that icon, it will stop the timer right there, and it will only track up until the point where you clicked on the button. So we'll just wait for a minute to pause, and then we'll see that this changes to this will basically notify you that enough time has passed where the hours completed might not be accurate. So you may want to refresh your view. So it will show you an icon here that indicates that you may want to update it, and there'll be a refresh button here. So maybe we can come back to that in a second. So I go back here. What else is left? So we've covered that. This is remaining, and the only thing remaining is the mobile app now. So I'll just yeah. Okay, there we go. So it's letting me know that time track has changed since the modal was loaded. So if I want to, if I left the page on this modal and I come back to it, let's say half an hour later, once I've completed the work, I realize that, okay, this is not accurate. So I just refresh the view and they will update the hours completed. So this is not a problem if you're just in this page. It's only when you click into it to stop the timer, because the system is assuming that you are stopping the time now and you have left it on for a while. So that's when it does that reminder. Yeah, so we'll just stop that timer there for now. We'll log the time. All right, so that is the different ways you can log time from the desktop version. The timesheet, log time component, the calendar converter, and so on. Last thing to cover off is the Salesforce mobile app. So I'll just share my mobile view here real quick. So I'll open this up. Go back to the demo page here, and where is this? So enable that. Okay, so I've got my screen set up here. Okay, that's good. I'll just move this off here. Okay, so I'll be going through the Salesforce mobile app, how you can set it up, and how you can move stuff around within there, the different options you have there. So the Salesforce mobile app, it's accessible from the Salesforce mobile app there. Sorry, the mobile app time logger is accessible from the Salesforce mobile app. So you can access it using the time logger component. So if I go into the menu there, I can search for the item itself. Oh, wrong search. All items, time logger. So I've got the time logger component added to my application, and once this loads up, we'll be greeted with the mobile app time logger. So it's basically the log time component. So wherever you add the log time component, if you're accessing it in the context of Salesforce mobile app or in a mobile browser, this component will load up. So if I go back to this view, so this is what you would see generally. You'll see a list of your actions that you're assigned to. The main difference between this and the timesheet in terms of the actions you see here is that it will only show you actions that are assigned to you in the current time frame. It won't show you actions that you've logged time to for the current time frame. So we saw earlier that you could log time to an action that you weren't assigned to, and it would start appearing on your timesheet. In this case, you'll see actions that are assigned to you for the current period, and that's it. And any active timers that you have running. So I've got three different tabs in here. I've got I'll just maybe use a cursor here to indicate that. So I've got the this week's view, the action list. So I can change between the different options. So maybe I want to see actions for last week, or maybe I didn't log time for last week. I can jump through that and then log my time accordingly. And this is persistently remembered. So if I were to close that out here, go back in, it will remember that I was using last week as the action list view. There we go. So it's now selected last week as an option. So let's switch back to this week. And then you have got next week and then this month. So you'll see your actions listed out here. So you'll see the action name, you'll see the action details. And if it has timer running, it'll just show you a red icon there that you can use to stop it. So let's pick a time log, an action to log time to. So I'm seeing the action ID. This is for the general action. So I can choose to enter hours in directly. So maybe I know how many hours I've done. So maybe I've done 1.5. Or I can choose to click on the increments. So I've got 15-minute increments and 1 hour increments. So maybe I did 2.5 hours, or maybe I did 2.75 hours. I can update that from there. And you don't have to enter hours in here to update that. You can just update it directly from the increments. So maybe I've done 1.25 or 1.5 hours. I can use the increments to update that. You've got this icon here which indicates the action, if the action is billable or non-billable. So in this case, the action does not have the non-billable field set to true, whereas this action here does have that. So for billable actions, you can set the time log to non-billable by clicking on it. So like how I'm doing it here. So red indicates non-billable, green indicates billable. Whereas for an action that is already non-billable, you can't change that. So you have the pencil icon, the edit icon here, if you want to add more detail into this time log. So I've got a few fields that I can update here. So I can add the notes in there. I've got some custom fields that I've added and removed from here as well. So that's another field that you can adjust. So let's say 1.5 hours, we'll put some notes there. Catch up call and save that. So right now, it's still in draft mode. Changes have not been saved. You still need to save the time log itself, and you can do that using the save icon at the top. So once I do that, it will go ahead and save the time log for me. Now, if there's any changes I've made to a time log and I'd like to undo them, I can use this cancel icon that will undo those changes. And then if I'd like to start a timer, I can use that icon to start a timer. I've already got one going, so I'll leave that as is. And then I can choose to stop the timer if I'd like to. And that should be, yeah, there it is, 0.16. So I can save that if I want to, and that will now be saved. So if I go back up. So as I mentioned, when you're editing the time log, you can change the fields over here. You can remove some, you can add your own. But what you can also do is, so you're seeing details from the action. So these details, you can adjust them. You can remove some of the fields here. You can add some more if you want. So there's a separate field set that you can use to control that. And yeah, that's about it on this page here. If I go back up. So the next page is the find action, and the find action it works very similar to the log time component that we saw earlier on the from the project overview page. So you'll be able to see all of your options here in terms of selecting a time. So it works similarly to that. You select a project, the milestone, the action, the person you want to log time for, and then you either put your hours in, or if you've selected an action. I haven't in my case, so if you do, then you'll see the start tracking time option. And if you have started a timer and you want to stop it, you can either go to your this week's view, you'll see that there, or if you want to use the search function, you just look up the action that you want to stop the timer for, and then there'll be a stop time tracking button instead of a start time tracking button. Yep, so that's that. And then lastly, we have the submit for approval. And before I get into the tab itself, this is also persistently remembered. So right now I'm on submit for approval. If I close out the app, if I go back into the application again, if I go back to the time logger, this will now load up the submit for approval tab. So if you've got a time log that's in the pending status, all of those time logs will appear over here, and you can adjust what fields you see over here. So if there's any fields that you'd like to see before setting it for submitting for approval, you can add that field over here. So I've added notes, I've added type, I've added a checklist item as well. I've got the hours there, I've got the time log ID. If I'd like to edit it, I can. If I'd like to edit, I can use that edit icon. A similar page there that you can update details on. And if I'd like to submit it for approval, I can use the individual icon, or I can use the submit all icon. So if I do that, it will submit all time logs for approval. So now all of my time logs have been submitted for approval, and they will appear in the approvers timesheet under the approvals tab. So that's the application there. We'll just go back to the browser here. We will go and have a look at where you can adjust these settings for the different fields. So if I open up the object manager for action as well as time log. So for the time log itself, there's two options here. So it should be mobile time logger. So this second one here, this will allow you to adjust fields on the submit for approval tab. And the first one here will allow you to adjust the fields when you're editing the time log inside of the mobile app time logger. So those are your two options for the time log itself, and for the action, which was on the action list view, the first tab that we had, you'll see mobile time logger fields that you can update. So those are your options in terms of editing the different fields there. And one more thing I forgot to mention, the log time component itself, you can access it in a few different places. So you've got the overview page. You can access it on the action pad. You can access it on the issue log. You can find it in the whiteboard, checklist board, Gantt chart, scheduler. So those are some of the different places you can access it. You might find it in the trackpad as well under log time. Yeah. So quite a few different places where you can log time from. Um, Yep. So, and one more thing before I move to the setup for adding the time logger, mobile app time logger. So I just bring this up, bring my mobile app again. So if I go back here, so this also works for community users. So if you're a community user that would like to access the mobile app time logger, you can the log time component can be added to your page. So I'll open up the community. I will go ahead and log in. Yep, there we go. So I'm logged into the community now. I go in. So the admin has added an item in the navigation menu for me called MATL, Mobile App Time Logger, and they've added in the log time component over here. So I'm seeing all of the tabs that I have for the Mobile App Time Logger. So that's how I can use that from here as well. So if I just go back to um, I'll just quickly cover off how you can add this component. So if you're adding it within for internal users as within the Salesforce mobile app, you'll want to go into setup, go into the Salesforce navigation. And then from here, you want to look for time logger. So I've already got it added on the side. This is just a custom one that I created, but I've got a time logger that I've added. So this will be on the left-hand side for you, most likely. You can just move it to the right-hand side, and you should be able to see it within the as an option to search within the application. If you wanted to add it to a specific application itself, you want to go into the Lightning App Builder. So I've got this here. I have a custom application here called, oh, sorry, App Manager. So you want to go into the App Manager and then select the custom app that you have. So I've got this MC Lite app that I'd like to edit this on. You want to go into navigation items, so navigation items there, and then select time logger. So time logger, move that over here, and you'll be able to see that in your application when you do use it on the mobile app. So that's how you'll be able to add it there. If you're wanting to add it to the community, so let's go to sites. You just need to add the log time component. So if I go to all sites, and if I actually open this up, and if I were to open up Builder as well, so I've got a tab added in there called Mobile App Time Logger. So I'll open that up. And all I've done is I've just added in the log time component. So if I just look up log time, so I've added this component, just drag and drop onto this page here. So this is the component that appears. So it's again just a log time component, but when you access it in the context of the mobile app, mobile browser, it will show up as the time log. So if I go to the page here, going to MATL, I'm seeing the log time component, but once I do access it from the mobile browser, it will show the mobile app time logger instead. Yep, so that's all there is on the different ways you can log time within the mission control as well as timesheets. Um, Hopefully that was in-depth enough. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us. Let me know now, or you can reach out to us at support@preco.com. Um, there's we have a lot of resources available on our website. We've got the user guide, training videos, the knowledge base, the learning portal, and the release notes as well. If there are no more questions, we can come back next year and meet again for the next Campfire session. Yeah, thank you all, and hope we all have a nice break.